Hey guys, welcome to the Powerful Man Show, where we help married businessmen save their marriages without having to talk about it, get unstuck, and gain clarity in their lives. As I like to say, life is too short for average. I'm your host, Doug Holt, with my co host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. Now let's get this started. Hey guys, welcome back. You are in for a treat. I talked Andy toward coming back with us again. If you haven't heard the previous podcast I did with Andy, please go back and listen to that one first. Andy drops a lot of knowledge and gold on that one. And so I try to persuade him to come back and give us some of his time, which wasn't hard because Andy always likes sharing his wisdom. So Andy, thanks for being with us again.
Oh, thanks, brother. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me back. First time was such a gas. I am really happy to go deeper with you today.
Love it. Love it. So you had a great topic that we were talking about before we were recording about safety. I'll let you kick it off.
Sure. Yeah, it really comes down to a conversation that I have with a lot of guys when they come into the activation method, which is one of the programs that I coach for in the Powerful Man. A lot of guys come in who are really, really good providers, right? They've got the career, they've got the business, they've got the money, and they do it really well. And they've been able to create, financial structure for their families. And they take seriously that, I'm going to call it an assignment, the assignment to go out and to provide for the family. It's easy to become resentful around that, if you don't get the response, oh, I'm providing, I'm working so hard, all these hours, I'm exhausted, and like, why doesn't my wife love me, and why am I not appreciated, and why am I not respected, and all of that kind of thing, right? And I hear this from a lot of guys, and it's understandable why guys would get frustrated when we work so hard to be able to fulfill this assignment of being the provider. It's important in our society and to our families. And I think what a lot of guys don't understand is that there's actually more than one assignment for a man, right? The second assignment is to create safety for the family, right? Yes, having money creates some financial security, and that's important. But emotional and physical safety for the family is an assignment that I think a lot of guys don't understand, that it's their responsibility. I've heard you say this over and over again in the trainings, Doug. It's like the man sets the frame for the mood in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever mood you bring walking in the door at night after your workday, that's going to set the frame for the entire house. And so if you can find a way to create a frame in which you're creating physical and emotional safety for your family, then you're going to have much more peace and harmony and cohesion as a family unit. So I guess the obvious question is, well, how do you do that, right? And a big part of that comes down to being able to manage our intense emotions, right? We have a challenging workday, we're feeling frustrated, maybe we're feeling angry or triggered. You know, when you bring that into the house, then that puts everybody else on edge, right? That immediately removes all of the safety from the house, and people don't know how to act and they don't know how to respond. And your family members go into deer mode, right? They just like scatter like cockroaches, right? And that's not obviously not the environment that you want to create for a cohesive, happy family experience. So learning to regulate our emotions by doing things like the alpha decompression that we teach during the activation method really helps guys to become more aware of their emotional states and to take proven steps to be able to manage themselves so that they are really coming into the house as a safe person, as someone who is in charge of their emotions, in charge of their themselves, and can step into the house as leader of the family.
Well, it's so true. And it's so interesting when you say that, Andy. And I know a lot of guys, there's two things that come to my mind. One is I grew up in Orange County, California, which is Southern California, a very affluent area. We have this area called Mile Square Park, which is a 4 mile, a park that's square mile. And in that park, you would drive by it. And what was interesting is you would always see families just filled in that park, having fun, joy, laughter. And the families that you would see weren't families that were well off. They were usually the families serving the other families driving by in their cars with nobody talking in the car, being absolutely miserable. And it went to show me at a very young age that, money doesn't buy that for you. Right now, of course, I fell into that trap as well. Well, Andy, it's just so easy in our culture to get in. I must provide, must provide, must provide. Yet it's really what the family unit wants and us men want is that cohesiveness. We want the fun, the joy, and what have you. And for a lot of us, we've lost that along the way. And a
Yeah.
lot of guys just lose how to do it. Like, I forgot how to have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to drop a word in here, Doug, that I know that will resonate with you. Our families need presence, right?
Mm.
And not NTS, but NCE presence. They need our attention. They need our focus on them when we are with them. And there's so many guys who, they don't close out their workday properly. They got a million open loops and they're thinking about work and money and all of the stuff that they got to do, that even when they're physically present with their family, they're not emotionally present. And when you are physically present, but you're checked out emotionally, that's not safe, right? That's not something that your wife and kids can relax into and have fun around, right? So a big part of creating that emotional safety is actually bringing yourself into the present moment of choosing to be with your family and then choosing to deal with all of the other stuff that is your responsibility in your life at another time so that you can focus on the present moment.
Yeah, and it's exactly what it is. And I was working with one of our one-on-one clients, Andy, and I was talking with him. And this guy has a level of wealth that I think all men would agree was he's done well, right? His income, his net worth is in the 8 figures personally, and so he's accumulated just a massive amount of wealth and properties and done all these things. And as we were going through the coaching, so it's one on one, so it's intense and it's very guided, he went over and asked his wife, kind of, they started to reconcile. They were on the brink of divorce and they started to reconcile and actually have deep conversations. And she turned to him and said, I've never wanted the money. I didn't want the beach house. I didn't want the house on the lake. I didn't want the land. I didn't need the apartment in the city. I didn't need, all I wanted was you. All I wanted was, and it blew him away
Mhm.
because here, this guy is super intelligent, right? And it's such a great guy, which is a great mix, right? Because sometimes they don't happen. And here he is working his tail off, is busting his ass to provide for his family, to give them all the things he never had as a kid, right? Self-made man. And he's given his wife everything. I'm talking designer clothes, designer, what you have. She can do anything she wants. They have a lot of money, yet she's miserable because all
Yep.
she wants is the family. He provided the financial stability and then some, but he did not provide the mental and emotional stability that she needed, which caused them to erode the relationship. And this spilled over, as you know, Andy, the kids are watching, right? The kids,
Yeah.
what do kids do? They don't listen to what you say,
They
they
copy what
watch
you
what
do.
you do, right?
Yeah.
Monkey see, monkey do. And so when he figured this out, it blew him away. Now, granted, he's taken the trainings and the things that we teach, and he's done a full 180 while, and Andy, you already know the answer to this, his business grew even more, right? Because he's more
Yes.
fulfilled. But
Yeah.
he started focusing more on how can I protect my family emotionally and learning those skills. I wasn't taught him. I don't know if you were as a kid.
Never.
Communication. Yeah.
Never. No.
It's funny. I always joke we all go to school. We go to school for a long time, some of us longer than others. But yet, the two things that cause the most strife in a man's life, what? Money, finance, right? And relationships. Those
Yeah.
things aren't taught. Unless you studied economics at your university or college, chances are you were never properly taught about how money and how money works in the real world. And you probably were never taught how to handle the most important relationships in your life. It's
Yeah.
mind boggling.
And, I'll add to that, Doug. A lot of guys don't choose to invest in their marriages, right? And
Yeah.
until it comes to a crisis point.
Yep.
I have 3 kids, and I can't even tell you how many parenting books we bought. And I think maybe we bought one book on relationships, and it was the 5 love languages.
Yep.
Right. And it wasn't until things got really extremely uncomfortable that I was like, oh, shoot, there's a serious problem here. Okay, now I need to figure out how to get the train back on the tracks.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of guys come to us in the activation method, right? And it's like things are blowing up, and I just kind of thought we would say our vows and everything would be fine after the
Guilty.
wedding day, right?
Guilty.
Yeah,
I certainly did. Yeah, you get all this advice from people, but yeah, we're going to be different, right? When the reality is, guys, statistically, it's a flip of a coin, right?
truly.
Percentage wise, it's actually
Yeah.
worse off for you guys. And as we've talked about oftentimes, and Andy, you know these stats. Over 70% of divorces are initiated by the woman, which
Yes.
catches the guy by surprise.
Yep.
And over 90% of divorces are issued by the women if she's got a college degree or better.
Yeah, and that's a terrifying statistic, right? If that doesn't motivate the guys who are listening to like go and invest in their relationships, like nothing will,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's crazy. We invest so much in our education. We invest in More guys will spend more time watching YouTube videos on how to remodel their house than they will on how to fix arguably the most important relationship in their lives, outside of their children, perhaps, right? Until it's too late or until they've let it go too far. And sometimes it's not in their control, and that's completely understandable. But as a couple, that's something you really, really have to do. And my wife and I, we've talked about this openly on this podcast. We hire like intimacy coaches and stuff when things are going great, because
Hmm.
we've flipped that instead of when it's going wrong. When it's great, we want to hire someone to come in and give us a third person perspective, because we know what it's like to wait when it's bad.
Yeah,
Like then you're putting out fires. It's almost like trying to save a business that is it's going through bankruptcy. Much harder than saving a business that's very profitable.
absolutely. It reminds me of when I learned how they actually fly airplanes, between cities, and it's never a straight line. It's always
Mm.
like a series of little course corrections,
Yep.
right? So if you can bring somebody on board to help you make those little course corrections before you get way off course and you're looking at landing in the wrong city, then it's just going to save you time and it's going to save you a lot of grief.
Yeah, and energy. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I remember when my wife and I were going through our turmoil, it consumed me, Andy. Like I still was
Yeah,
running, I was running multiple companies at the time, but really, what I was thinking about is my brain kept switching to what the problems were with my wife. All the things that she was doing wrong. Of course, it wasn't me. You know, I took
never
some,
is.
I took some ownership to be fair, but not as much as I do now retrospectively. And if I think back of how much more money I would make or money I would save and all these things, and really the heartache is what it is, for myself, but also seeing somebody that I love so much. I loved my wife, she loved me, but yet we couldn't meet. We couldn't figure out how to get there, and the powerful man didn't exist at the time,
Yeah,
right? So we didn't have the
yeah.
resources.
Yeah, I've had those conversations as well, right? And one of the things that comes up for me a lot when I'm coaching guys in the activation method is this idea of, like you mentioned with your one-on-one client, the guy who's been really successful and provided and made all the money, and his wife actually didn't want that; she just wanted him. Most of the guys that I work with, their wives just want the man that they married,
Hmm.
right? And somehow over a period of years, he took his eye off the ball and he got his priorities backwards. And he thought that his assignment was just to go out and break his back to make all of this money, right? When in fact, she's much more concerned with who he is than what he has, right? And a big part of the work is like bringing guys back to like, okay, who were you when you got married? And what was that like je ne sais quoi that you brought into the relationship that really tickled your wife's fancy? And how do we reactivate that?
I love it. And listen, guys, we're not saying don't make money. We're we're an organization of businessmen, so we like money. Money's a good thing. And something that was interesting about this particular guy, Andy, is I asked him. I go, okay, great. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you absolutely love what you do on a day to day basis? Because what you do is stressful. And it was like he thought about it for a second. One. Oh, so
Wow.
you're spending all your time at work, which is destroying your marriage, destroying a relationship with your kids. You freaking hate it. Hmm. Let's see here. But sometimes it just takes somebody, a coach, to hold up a mirror, right? And as a
Yes.
coach, I think, Andy, a great coach isn't somebody who gives you advice per se. It's just someone who holds a mirror up, right? The men that we work with are extremely intelligent guys. And once the mirror's held up, they're like, oh, wow. you know, I can see it clearly now. Awesome. I can move forward. And once I talked to him about that, we started working on an exit for him. How do we
Yeah.
exit? What does that
Mhm.
exit look like? Fast forward today, his marriage is doing well. I wouldn't say great, but it went from horrible, one of the worst ones I've heard of, staying married. And he was staying married out of obligation, religious obligation. They were staying together, which is
Yeah.
basically, hey, let's be miserable together, right? It's horrible. To now they're having great conversations, going on trips. And what's come up for him is he's going to be able to make more money working less with more autonomy than he has before, simply because he decided, you know what, I don't like what I do. So I'm going to pursue something different or a different cause of action. And all of a sudden, as you and Andy, how this happens, things just started to fall into his lap. And he's like,
Yeah.
Doug, what is happening right now? He's going to make more money, be closer with his friends and family than he ever has before. And it's amazing.
Because he's aligned, right? He's
Yep.
aligned internally and he's passionate and he's got significance behind what he's doing now. And I relate with that very personally. I wasn't always a coach, Doug, as you know.
Hmm.
I was a corporate guy for a bunch of years. and worked in a soul destroying environment where this is like office politics and all of that. And it finally took a coach to kind of grab me and say, listen, you need to find your significance. And I was like, what does that mean? Right. And it took me a little while to
Sure.
actually figure out what it was that was a combination of what I'm good at and what I'm extremely passionate about. And fortunately, ended up partnering up with you guys at the Powerful Man. And I am so excited to get out of bed every day and help these guys get unstuck and step into more powerful versions of themselves. It's incredibly rewarding.
I absolutely love it. And, as we're talking, I pulled up. So, guys, we use Slack internally for the Powerful Man movement, right? We have a team of almost 40 people that help make this movement a reality for the men that we serve. And one of the things that we spend most of our time talking about is client wins. We have a client wins section. And Andy is in there and put in there all the time. As a coach, Andy, I'm just going to say it. I know this podcast isn't about you. This is not me blowing smoke, but you have transformed the lives and families of people all over the world, my friend. And talk about significance. Um, there's not many times you get to make that impact. And gentlemen, if you're listening to this, Andy's one of our coaches. He's a real guy. Like, this is real world stuff that we teach and very applicable. So you have the opportunity of working with somebody like Andy who's been down the road, been there, done that, and has actually made those changes necessary to get people back on track. And I'm looking at one of these messages right now, Andy, where you're talking about a gentleman who's a runner and the importance of him showing up consistently. And that's just the other day. I mean, I can
Yeah,
go on and on and on about these. So when we look at this whole idea of showing up and providing protection, right? This guy going from a runner, running away from his relationship, running away from his problems, to actually standing strong and being there for his family, that provides a level of emotional safety for your wife, for his wife in this case, but also an example for his kids to grow into, right? They're going to see how to handle a mature relationship, and that dad or a man doesn't have to be scared, right? Or can be scared and still stand in there. And that's the definition of courage.
absolutely. And I really enjoy working with that particular guy. And he shared some wisdom with our group based on his experience as a runner. He said, that when I'm training for a marathon, I recognize that when I don't show up for a training session, that I go kind of two steps back, and I got to make up the time. So he translated that learning to his routines, right? His daily routines that he's committed to doing. And he was letting himself off the hook a little bit. And then he realized, like, oh, if I get out of my habit of doing my routines every day, then it's much harder to get back in. And I noticed that things start to fall apart a little bit in terms of relationships and mindset and all of that kind of stuff. So well, I think we all bring some experience from various parts of our lives into our relationships, and we can really lean on some of that experience sometimes. Most of the guys that I know who work coming to the program, they already have the answers to a lot of their questions. They just need that mirror held up to them. And they need Tim and Doug in their ear, and sometimes they need Andy in their ear,
Yeah.
and just a little bit of support and encouragement and community to know that they're not alone out in the wilderness. And I feel very blessed to be able to be part of that community.
Yeah. Well, as they say, iron sharpens iron. So being around other men who are like minded and on that journey, one, it's hard to find. These are the one percenters that show up.
Yeah.
We have literally hundreds of thousands of men that digest our content, yet less than 1% actually take action. And I'm not calling you guys out. I've done that before. I'm sure Andy has too, where you're just not quite ready. You're on the fence and you're waiting for something to come. But I'm hoping for a couple of you guys, this calls you forward, whether it be through the Powerful Man or through something else. Doesn't matter to me one way or the other. Won't change my lifestyle if you guys join or not, but will warm my heart to see you guys get the results that you want. I mean, that's why I do what I do and why Andy does what he does. And the 30 some other people that are involved in the movement, we show up for you guys. And I just hope you guys get the results and take the action that you actually want. So, Andy, when we summarize some of these things that we're talking about, and I like to always put you on the spot when I can because you can handle it. Give me one or two things that the guys can do because you were guys. We like practical action steps. All right, give me one or two things the guys can do in this insight.
So we really talked about the assignments. I think that was the theme for this
Yeah.
conversation, Doug. So it was the assignment of providing, right? And that's an important assignment. And like you said, we want to encourage you guys to go out and make the money and be successful, but don't make it all about the success, right? It's not about the guy who has the house, or No, it's not about having the house and having the money. It's about the guy who has the house, right? So, I don't care how successful you've been. I want to know what kind of a man you are and what your qualities are like. So that's, approach the being a provider piece as, with some enthusiasm, but also with some moderation, and understand that the second assignment is equally important, that assignment of creating physical and emotional safety. And that speaks to self mastery, Doug. That speaks to being able to know what kind of emotional state you're in, being able to regulate yourself, so that you're not feeling triggered and you're acting out and behaving badly, but rather you're able to experience yourself having feelings, having emotions, things coming up, and being able to process those in a healthy way. For me, I'm a yoga teacher. I meditate a lot. Those are two things that really help me be in my body, be with myself. And it's a practice. It's something that we evolve over time. That ability to sit with ourselves in the fullness of our experience and go, what's actually going on for me right now? And can I sit with this? Rather than numbing it out with social media or alcohol or pornography or a million other things that are available to distract us from the experience of actually just being present for ourselves. And if we can be present for ourselves, then we can be present for our families. So you can't give what you don't already have.
Love it. Sage advice as always, Andy. Thanks again for being here, brother. Love to have you back on again soon.
Oh, it's been a slice, Doug. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, gentlemen, as you always know, we say in the moment of insight, take massive action. And guys, get off the fence. It's never fun there. We'll see you next time on the Powerful Man Show. All right, guys, that's a wrap for this episode. But as I always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. You see, there are two types of men that listen to a podcast like this. Those that go on from one podcast or show to another, just hoping things are going to change and realizing that they're going to be in the same place month after month, year after year. You see, I was this guy, so I completely get it. You may just not be ready. But there's also a second man that listens to a show just like this. And this is a guy who takes massive action so they can shorten the learning curve, compress time, and get results to be the wolf. See, wolf is an acronym for wise, open, loving, and fierce. Now, ask yourself, which one am I? And just be honest with yourself there. And there's no judgment on my end, but if you're ready to move from deactivated deer mode, which is defend, excuse, explain, react, to activated wolf, wise, open, loving, and fierce, then go over to thepowerfulman.com/grow and go there now. In fact, I'll make it super easy for you. I will even put the link right in the description here, so you can just click it and go over there now to learn more. Guys, in the moment of insight, take massive action. Go from deactivated to activated, because like I said, life is too short for average. And I'll see you on the next episode.